Hi, everyone, and welcome to Coffee and Careers. My name is Erica O'Toole. You are used to kind of seeing me on screen, but I have two guests with me today, two new guests that you aren't used to seeing, and I'm very excited to introduce them in just a minute here. Again, I'm Assistant Director in the Career Development Center. I work with our College of Education and Human Services, as well as our Global Campus students, and our First Impressions program, as well as our outreach programs. So today, we are going to be talking about the PK12 administration program, so our educational leadership. Very excited to have Dr. Gina Wilson with me and Zach Evans, an academic advisor. And as always on our broadcast, I encourage you to ask questions if you're tuning in today, and I will pose those to the group. And also wanted to share what I am having in my coffee today. So always I share a different mug, which I always tell you guys I have way too many mugs, so it's a different mug pretty much every week. Today, I have my I Love CMU students. So that was a part of the annual university campaign. But I chose this one because all of you CMU students are either doing final exams or nearing graduation. And I know that it's a hard time right now and you're kind of getting towards the end. And just to show my appreciation for all of you, you're the reason that we're here. And I love working with all of you daily. So thought this was an appropriate mug for today. I had my Starbucks coffee today since I'm on campus. So that was always an exciting thing for me to be on campus every other week. And yeah, Starbucks coffee with my almond milk is what I always have. So anyways, without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Gina Wilson.
Great. So do I have to say what I'm drinking right now?
If you want to, yeah.
Well, we are twinning doubly because I have my I Love Seeing student glasses as well from a campaign where I donated to the women's soccer club. So very worthy space to put your dollars into CMU students, athletes, and scholars. And I'm just drinking tea today. So it's late in the afternoon, so I'm on to tea and off of my morning coffee.
Awesome. And Zach?
I actually have the same mug somewhere in the background, but I've already been through a few cups of coffee, so I have my trusty water at this point. But right with you on the donations I think I usually give to the Volunteer Center, which was my first professional home at CMU.
Very cool. All right, so we have some questions today for Gina. And then, like I said, if any of you have questions that are tuning in, please feel free to type those in the chat. I'll be monitoring that. But we do have some prepared just so we can kind of keep the conversation going. So I'm going to go ahead and kick things off and ask you, what can I do with a degree in educational leadership for P through 12 schools?
So the two programs that I am the program director for, which is the Master's of Ed Leadership and the Specialist in General Education Administration, typically students come to those programs who are wanting to hold some type of administrative position within a K-12 system. So whether it's a private school, a public school, a charter school, those two degrees prepare you for some type of leadership, principalships, superintendencies, assistant superintendencies, directorships. There's many, many leadership positions within a school, even coaching and teacher leadership options. These are the degrees that can get you the understanding of the organization of schools, the business of schools and districts, as well as the leadership theory to lead well, lead effectively, lead efficiently on behalf of the communities and students that you serve.
That's awesome. And what an important role to have, right? My husband's a teacher, and so I see what an important role that the leaders that he has are. I mean, it's such an important role not only in the schools but for our teachers. So what an awesome program that this is for our students as well.
Awesome. Well, my question for you is, what are the differences between the different educational leadership graduate degrees? As you already mentioned, there's two in your area.
Yeah. So I'll speak a little bit about first our master's program, because that's the bigger program, and that's the Masters of Ed Leadership. And within that program, students, it's a 30 credit program, and students learn the nuts and bolts of, again, the operations of the school building, from human resources to curriculum to to managing instruction, to setting a mission and a vision for your school, but then also the, like, what type of leader you want to be behind that, because that matters. Because when you're the principal of the leader in a school, you're not just managing the business operations. Granted, it's a big part of it, because there's much compliance from the state and federal, but you're also tending to the families that you serve, the diverse families that you serve, the diverse student populations that you serve. You have to then tend to your teachers and ensure that they have everything they need to be able to be super proficient and be able to be performing at a high level in their classrooms. So because of all those intricacies that you're in charge of, you're a singular person in charge of all of that. That degree will prep you for that, and to also create a culture. We really try to create a culture of inclusion and shared leadership, to where everyone feels like they have a voice, and everyone feels like they can contribute to the actualization of that mission or vision. And in that master's degree, it's really narrowly focused on the building. So a school building, like an elementary school or a middle school or a high school. So a very specific grade level, and that is kind of your space of influence and leadership. The second degree, which is our specialist program, that kind of elevates the learning to one notch up. You're learning about how to lead at the district level. So it's not just, so then it's multiple buildings. You're leading multiple principals. You're guiding principals. You're still attending to the needs of the students. You're setting a higher level vision for that district, and then also how another component that the building level degree doesn't have, that the district level degree has, is what about a board of education? How do you manage those stakeholders who are technically your boss, but you're the expert in education? So how do you create that relationship and convene everyone again around around shared leadership and that vision and mission? And then as a superintendent or an assistant superintendent or even a director of a certain program that serves the whole district, you are truly of service to the community, and you need to know how to connect to the community, connect to partners within the community, so that you can have different agencies, state level agencies, nonprofits serving your students, right, to meet all those needs, because schools were asked to do a lot of things and we just don't have the capacity. So partnerships and collaboration are essential. And at the superintendent level, those relationships matter. And so your leadership styles matter. So in that secondary degree, we really prep them for that high level leadership, that relationship building, that cultivation of collaboration, and again, around that shared vision for district, and then support of your staff that are serving the students and the families.
That's interesting. I think, maybe some of our students tuning in, and I guess myself too, I don't know that I would have necessarily connected the degree with the community aspect. And so I think that that's a really important component. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because maybe some of our students wouldn't have thought of that as part of the degree. So I love that you spoke a little bit about that as part of this.
Well, and for me, when I was 22 years in the field, and the field of education, like it's some field, but in my positions, and I was always in small districts with high needs, right? Our students needed so much, and we loved and cared for our students and communities so much that we wanted to provide anything and everything that could have them just come to school, jump in those classrooms, and be able to just meet their potential. And so we relied on community support. And so we had to be pretty credible and good stewards of the public money and of how we were running that school. And in many communities, the schools are the heart of the community. That's the one common bond of where you live. And too often we do tend to overlook the community as a place of resource as well as a place of connection, but it's the community's kids. And so they're trusting us with them. So it's essential to get their voice and to really involve them in the work of the school and the work of educating the students within the school.
Absolutely. Definitely. Okay, so do you know who are the typical students that apply to this program?
So our programs are a part of Global Campus. So although the majority of our programs of our students do come from Michigan, we do have some students outside of the state of Michigan, which always makes for the most dynamic and interesting class conversations to get a national perspective on the state of education through a certain context of the course that we're in. So many of them are teachers within their 3rd through 10th year of teaching, where they're deciding that they want something more. They still want to contribute to the field of education, but maybe in a different way. And so our students come to us and they're teachers. Some students are already maybe in leadership positions like an assistant principal, or maybe they already have a principal position. So they're coming to kind of grab the information to be effective. And but they're busy. Our students are all working adults, and they're so busy. So we try to give a lot of grace to our students. We do have evening classes that we offer them. We meet synchronously weekly in the master's program, and we meet synchronously on the weekends for the specialist program, but only 3 times on Saturday morning. And they're already leaders in their building, the students that come to us. Most of them are coaches, they're teaching classes, they're volunteering, for this club. They have their own children who are school age typically, and they are just they're in it for the goodness of their students, and they want to improve themselves. And so we really try to meet them where they're at. One of the great things about my colleagues that teach in the class is that we've all been field educators, so we understand that context. So we're able to give grace where we need to, but we really try to incorporate the learned experience and the leadership of our students as they currently are, to just create some really great learning communities in our courses. We just adore our students. We learn so much from them. It's like this symbiotic relationship with them, because we love the field, but we're not in the field anymore. So we enjoy their stories and their learnings and the new innovative things that they're doing in their districts and their schools, and we try to incorporate those into each other's learning as much as possible.
Yeah, and Gina, I think that's something I love about my job too, is interacting so much with these students. So, I do appointments virtually on the phone with the students, and sometimes, I will be working on a resume with a student, for instance, and they're telling me all these things that they do, and I'm just like, when do you sleep?
Exactly.
Like, it amazes me the things that our students do, and I think that is something too that is unique to CMU. And I like to think, at least, how much we are there for our students and how much we are adaptable for our students. I look at these programs and, I think we do a really great job of recognizing that our students are out there doing incredible things, and they are busy people. They're working adults. And so it's just amazing working with such amazing students. I love it.
They are amazing, and we, because we're virtual, it's hard. People would assume it's hard to connect, but what I can say is that our faculty, we really lean into our students and are very accessible to them, because we don't have the luxury of physical space, right? We're virtual. We're always virtual. We've always been virtual. And so really creating that community of learners and leaders as they grow in their leadership with one another, trying to create their network of support when they do get their principalship job, you rely on those learning colleagues that you went through the degree with. And so creating as much opportunity for them to interact with each other within our synchronous sessions or within group projects is very important. Or to create space for our students to share, again, the innovative ways that they're educating and that they're leading, so that when another student gets that position, they can say, oh, I remember my colleague from that class had that model. Let me reach out to them, and really trying to extend that network for them. That's a goal of myself and all the faculty, as well as to really create space and time, because teachers and our students, they're just so generous with their time, and they always are working on behalf in one of their roles, whether it's their parenting role or their teacher role or their principal role or their superintendent role. They're always giving and giving and giving. And so we really try to create spaces of care for our students, for each other, to model what it feels like, to be in a space where your well-being is cared for, who you are is cared for. Because if we create an environment like that for them in our courses, then we know they can carry that forward for their teachers and their students and their districts. And so it's not lost on myself and my colleagues that we need to model at a high level, because what we model and provide for our students, they're learning that as well. Like, it's that kind of that outside the actual curriculum, but they're learning that leadership that then they can then take on and remember how it felt to be cared for in a classroom setting, so that they can help their teachers create that in their classrooms as well.
Definitely.
Loving all that focus on holistic support. As actually a student in our online grad programs, I can vouch for our faculty that they care for us and that they model and practice what they preach. But turning a bit more towards a technical angle, what are the certifications that can be earned from these programs?
Okay, great. In the state of Michigan, in order to be a principal or to be a superintendent, you need to hold a certification. And so we are what's called an educator. Our two programs are what's called educator prep programs or administrator prep programs. And they're very like, they're prescribed for us what we need to do legislatively. Like, we need to meet a standard, and our program is approved by the Michigan Department of Education. And so students who come through our program, the Masters of Ed Leadership, after they complete that program, they are then eligible to apply for the elementary and secondary administrative certification, or the building level certification. That certification would allow them to be a principal in the state of Michigan. And then our specialist program actually holds both of those two different certification programs, because you can either do the building level one, which I described, or you can do the central office one, which is one that is meant for an assistant superintendent, those district level curriculum leaders, or the superintendent him or herself. But in Michigan, either you don't need one or the other. Like, so you don't need both certifications to be the superintendent. If you have a principalship certification, you can still be the superintendent. So there's a reciprocity with the certifications in Michigan. So sometimes we'll have a student who maybe came back to CMU, got their master's in curriculum, but then they decide, but now I want to be a principal. So then that's where the specialist program works really well, because if they want to go into the principalship, they can take that building level certificate within the specialist degree. Or if they say, no, I was a curriculum leader at the building, but now I want to be an assistant superintendent or a superintendent of curriculum, and then they would track into that district level. So there's a lot of options for students. And that's why our advising is really, like you said, holistic. We have so many different options on how a student can meet their end goal, that when we sit with them, we just listen to them for a while and say, I think this is the best track for you. And that advising actually starts when a student inquires about our program. So often I will sit with them and just kind of hear, I was like, what do you want to be when you grow up in 5 years? What title do you want to hold at the end of your career? Sometimes we go all the way out there and then work our way back. So then I can say, oh, well, this degree allows you to do that, or this degree allows you to do that, but you might want to go on for your doctoral degree, which we also have. I don't direct that. But our specialist degree program, those credits are transferable into our doc program. So for a student who's seeking that endpoint, I can advise them about where to start now. And that's why it's so important to even during the inquiry phase of a teacher just starting to think about, beyond the classroom, what my next steps are. We really spend a lot of time to allow them to understand what the field is going to ask them to have as a degree, and then how we can maybe be a part of that journey with them.
That's great. I love that you ask them, what do you want your career to look like at the end? Because that's something that we talk to students so much about. How can we help you on the entire journey, not just like here and now? So I love that you're so much a part of the entire process, and you think that far ahead with them. That's so great that they can really work through that with you.
Well, and sometimes they don't know. They know they don't want to be in the classroom for 30 years. Like maybe that's all they know. It's that I cannot be in the classroom for 30 years, which is okay because it is a grind. And so then I say, well, what brings you energy in your work right now? Like when you can go into it tired, but when you leave it, you feel like you took a nap. And sometimes that's curriculum work, and sometimes that's coaching a colleague, and sometimes that's working one-on-one with a student, or sometimes that's working on a committee, right, around school improvement or data analysis. When we start to flesh out those moments where they build energy, that helps them job craft where they actually want to go. And then it's a better fit. And you're not just chasing a title, you're chasing what feeds you and what fuels you, which then will never make you feel like and that sounds so cliche, but it'll never make you feel like you're going to work because you leave energized. Like when you can leave a job energized, it means you're in your right space.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so for students watching, how can they best prepare themselves for a career in leadership for schools and districts?
So, and this is our students just don't like to toot their own horns, honestly. Many teachers are leaders the minute before they even become teachers. Even doing their teaching internship or their student teaching, they're tutoring after school. They're taking on, lunch duties. They're doing fundraisers. All of those skills that you learn within those, small moments of volunteering can translate into leadership skills. So what I always try to tell new teachers is anything outside of lesson planning and teaching your students, write it down. Because chances are, and yes, 100%, those are leadership. So that's you taking on leadership and showing leadership within your building on behalf of a colleague. So any committee you sit on, any fundraiser you oversee, any field trip you organize, anything extra, any curriculum that your principal said, wow, that's great. Can you help us scale that to the entire grade level you teach? That's leadership. That's taking something you're doing and expanding it, or implementing it, or creating multiple planning levels. That is all leadership. And within both of the programs, the degree programs that I discussed, your application process asks, what have been your leadership endeavors? What have you done from a leadership standpoint? And that then begins that conversation of, these are my micro moments of leadership that I have taken on that let me know this is what I need to lead, like at a higher level, not just from a teaching position, but lead from the front. And so just really it's finding those opportunities that match with your talent, skills, and energy level. Archive what you're doing. Really try to take a step back. No one views themselves as special, and so often the work that teachers are doing are so exceptional and special, and I'm like, no one else could have done that the way you did it. Like, that is special. Like, view what you did as an observer and you'll realize just how skilled you are. Not everybody has it. And so for them to literally craft out exactly what steps they took to get to Mackinac Island, from the fundraising to the transportation calls. Like every moment of decision making builds leadership capacity, and they need to see it as such so that they can then make their case for the type of leader that they have the potential to become or already are.
Absolutely. And I think because I work with a lot of these students as well on resumes and all of that to market themselves. And I find so many times too that the students in these human services fields, they do feel awkward about bragging about themselves, but they have so much that they have to offer. And it's funny because I'll have a student come in and say, I don't really have anything to put in my resume. And then I say, okay, well, let's talk about what you've done. And all of a sudden they have like 2 pages. So it amazes me sometimes that our students don't realize how much they've really done and how much that they can put on their resume and talk about in an interview because they're doing such amazing things. They just don't realize it. So
because they just do it, like in the education field and other human services field, you do what needs to be done. So you don't think it's special, right? Because you love who you're serving. So they love their students, they love their community, they love their clients. So they would never say no, which, it does sometimes can burn us out as well, right? There's a negative side to that coin. But making sure you capture those moments, and even if it's not to apply for a program, but just to say, oh my gosh, look at all what I accomplished. Like we have to celebrate our work sometimes in order to not get burned out, and just to say, look at all the kids I impacted this year, and just take a step back and just be in awe of self for even if it's 30 seconds, just do it, because it truly matters when you're just pouring yourself into your work on a daily basis.
Absolutely. Well, we are already at our time pretty much. So it's crazy because it completely flew by. It was such a pleasure talking with you, Gina. I mean, you have so many great things and so many insights into this program. I hope so many students come and talk to you about the program because I learned so much myself just listening today. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Zach, for joining us as well. We appreciate you being on today. Do you either of you have any last minute tips or anything you'd like to share with our students before I wrap up?
My only kind of thing I'd like to say about the programs is both of these programs are open enrollment. So we don't have a window of enrollment or application. So you can reach out to me in summer and say, hey, I'm just thinking about this. And then if you want to apply in for fall, great. But if you don't want to apply till next summer, that's fine too. We start students every semester in both programs. So you don't have to be worried about kind of like, oh, I missed that window, so now I have to wait a year. No, we are always adding new students to our program. We're graduating students every semester, so we can get you in, we can get you out, and we would just love to chat about your goals and about the opportunities that our programs could help you meet those, how they could help you meet those.
Awesome.
Yeah, and my only last thought would be take advantage of the resources that were talked about. Not every grad program is going to have someone like Dr. Wilson willing to meet and do some career planning before you're even at the university. That's such an awesome resource and part of the culture that's really unique to CMU. So definitely take advantage of the folks like Dr. Wilson or Erica, or even academic advisors like myself. And we love to see students and talk through your goals and ambitions. But it was a pleasure being here, and thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Congratulations to everyone that is graduating. Super excited for all of you. What a huge accomplishment. And thank you for joining us with Coffee and Careers today. So I hope you all have a wonderful Wednesday, and thank you both again for joining me. Have a great day.